What's going on, Internet? Welcome back to the URL versus IRL podcast. I am your host, Bree Lynch. I don't know if you are a returning listener or if you're a brand new listener, but whoever you are, welcome. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for listening. If you're a new listener, and maybe you just got here from some of the previous episodes that I just did, welcome. I really hope that you're going to like it here. I am doing something a little different this episode, not for any reason in particular. Actually, I'm just going to be frank with you guys. I hated this version of this episode that I recorded. I finished editing it the other day, and I just felt like I was talking in circles. I felt like that day was just a really brain foggy day for me, and for some reason I decided that I was going to record a podcast. I think it's just because I had the time, and this is my first time talking to you guys in real time in a really, really long time. And the reason that I don't do this is because it generally stresses me out. I like to have a while to edit an episode to what I feel like is quote unquote perfection before I release it. Now, the biggest, I guess, theme of this podcast is being realistic and keeping everything as close to like real life as possible rather than all the polished finished pictures of everything that we see online. And I think that if somebody heard me explain that I like to edit the podcast to perfection before I release the episode, they would probably think that's kind of inauthentic. But I don't think that it's inauthentic. I just think that me as a person, I am a creative, number one. Number two, I've been doing this for a really long time. Maybe not podcasting specifically, but just the whole world of filmmaking and creating things with camera and finishing a product and showing it to the world, or producing a product and showing it to the world has been a practice that I've been a part of for like well over 10 years now at this point. And so for me, I just like to put out the best version of something possible. I like to keep people's attention and I don't like to waste anybody's time. So that's what I mean by editing the episodes. And that just means keeping them concise, not necessarily altering what we're saying. I just went into a little bit of a rant. Let me roll the intro music really quick for you guys, and then we'll get started with today's episode. You're tuning into URL versus IRL, hosted by Bree Lynch. Okay, so like I was saying, I'm talking to you guys in real time for the first time in a while because I felt like the episode that I recorded, I just was not in the right headspace. Now, today is Friday, November 8th. That's how close we are to releasing this podcast. So I'm really hoping that I can do this successfully today and not have to cut out a lot. Because I think that my one place on the internet has always been pure authenticity, is what I like to believe. I think that for a while, for those of you that haven't been following me for a while, I used to have this account that was like kind of big. It had like 30,000 followers at one point. And I was kind of like an influencer in a sense. I was like an automotive influencer, and I just like felt the like authenticity leaving my body every time that I was posting on that account. And it's not because I wasn't being myself, because I was being myself, but the problem was the people that were following me were only seeing this very specific painted picture of myself that I was presenting to the internet on my feed. Anyways, I'm fucking ranting at this point. But I do feel like I have always been authentic on the internet. I just hated that I had to kind of like shield parts of myself on that account. So I moved over to a different account and now I basically have rebranded and restarted myself. Anyways, I think that the last podcast that I recorded, I was being really authentic and like I really wanted to talk to you guys about this book that I read, that I was really, really into and I'm still really into, and I will talk to you about it today. But I think that there was a couple points that I was really trying to hit that I really just kind of like got lost in the sauce. I don't know what it was. But anyways, let me paint a picture for those of you that are not watching this podcast. Today, we are back in New Jersey. Welcome back. We went to California for a while, and quite frankly, I just jumped right back into the studio in New Jersey with my dad because we had a really tight turnaround. Both of us had just gotten off of a plane, and he was going to be leaving within like, I think 3 or 4 days, and we took 2 days to shoot the 2 episodes that we did, and I was shocked that he even gave me that much of his time to be able to sit down like that and record those episodes. If you guys didn't get a chance to listen to the 2 podcast episodes that just came out before this one, I interviewed my dad, which was super fun for me. For those of you that didn't get a chance to listen to the episode, you're probably like, why would you interview your dad on the podcast? Like, what does he even do? Well, my dad's a professional stuntman, just like I'm a professional stunt driver myself. and he's been working in the industry for over 30 years, and I just knew that my dad's story was extremely inspiring, because I've heard it my whole life, and I just wanted to share it with the world, and it was received really well by those people that did listen to it. So if you have some more time on your hands, feel free to go and listen to those. Those are called From the Hustle to Hollywood and Self-Made Success, Jay Lynch's Story. Now, the reason that I brought up my dad, even though I just said that I was going to paint a picture for you guys, is because we are back in New Jersey, but we're not sitting in the podcast studio. We're actually sitting in front of a lake. Now, this lake is a really special lake to me because it's the lake that I grew up on. I'm not at the house that I grew up at, but I am at that lake today. And the reason that I came here is because this lake is extremely inspiring to me. I loved living at this lake, and I didn't realize how much I loved it until I moved away from it. And then I realized that I really wanted to live here again. And there's another house that my dad owns that is also on the same lake that I grew up on. And I'm currently sitting at that house today, which is a very inspiring place for me. Now, you guys are probably expecting me to say, I bought the house, I'm moving into it. Nope, nope. My dad and I have finally actually talked about me purchasing this house from him. We're like settling on numbers and time frames and like all that kind of things. I'm really excited about that. But anyways, I just wanted to come over here today because I felt like I needed a little bit of a change of pace, a little bit of a change of environment, not because I'm sick of the studio, just because I felt the need to be outside because I feel very calm outside today, and I needed a little bit of calm, if you know what I'm saying. Now, something that I really wanted to talk about on this podcast is that I think that a change of environment can be really inspiring for some people, and I think that it's actually more inspiring than we realize a lot of the times, because sometimes we just get so, like, I guess, head down and focused on what we're doing that we forget to look up sometimes. If you guys don't know me by now, I am a bitch that loves analogies, okay? I live for a good analogy. I use them in my regular day-to-day talking. I never shut the fuck up with analogies. I have always something to compare one thing that I'm dealing with to something way off the fucking handle. I don't know where it comes from. This is just who I am. So please expect to hear quite a few of those in this podcast. I really hope that you can follow. I think that a lot of the times we end up so head down in what we're doing, or at least this is how I end up. I end up so head down in what I'm doing and so focused that I forget to look up sometimes. And by that, I mean, with the podcast specifically, to keep it simplistic, a lot of the times I just get so focused on like what I'm doing, and I'm just like, oh my God, I have to get this done. I have to get this done. I have to line up the next guest. I have to figure out what I'm talking about next, and like focus on my release dates and this and that and blah, 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 that like I forget to enjoy other parts of life sometimes. And I really need to get back to that. I went on a hike with some friends recently, and I just had the time of my life. I realized how much I missed hiking. I used to go hiking every single day when I lived in California, and it was so nice to be able to disconnect, I feel like, from the world for like the hour and a half to 2 hours that it would take us every morning. We would wake up super early before the rest of the world was awake, or anybody should have been talking to me at least. But anyways, I realized that sometimes even with hiking with my dog Torque, we would do the same hike all the time. And I realized that like even then it was supposed to be like a nice, calming, relaxing thing for me to be able to like connect with nature. But like every single day I was so fucking focused on like how long it was taking me to do this hike and like how fast I was going, because I'm a competitive person naturally. Like I just want to be better than myself yesterday. I think that like I would just become so focused on the fact that like I needed to go faster and faster and faster and faster and drink like less water. Like what the fuck are you even talking about, bitch? Like you're supposed to be relaxing. This is supposed to be nice and like a good form of exercise for you, and like just disconnect a little bit. And for some reason I was like, I have to go faster. I don't know what the fuck that was about. But anyways, I was forgetting to look up is I think the point that I was trying to make in all of that. I was forgetting to look up. I was forgetting to stop and breathe and soak in the sights every now and then. So anyways, I think that the real reason that I wanted to talk about needing a change of environment sometimes to inspire you is because right before I went to California with the podcast, I was actually kind of getting in a place with the podcast where I was like, I'm running out of people to talk to, because quite frankly, in New Jersey, I'm kind of new here in a sense. Like I grew up here, yeah, but then I left for like 10 years. And with me leaving for 10 years, I kind of lost a lot of my network. And like, I don't have as many friends as I once did. I don't have as many connections as I once did. And like, just clearly not as many people to talk to as I would have. Sorry, I had to adjust myself. Not as many people as I had back in the day to talk to now, right? So like sometimes when it comes to finding guests and stuff for the podcast, it's a little difficult for me when I'm in this state. I really need to like expand to more like the tri-state area, but it's just hard, man, you know? So if any of you know anybody in the tri-state area that would want to be on the podcast, please have them hit me up. Anyways, so what I was saying is right before I went to Los Angeles, I was kind of getting a little like nervous, not unmotivated, not because I didn't believe in myself, but just like nervous because I was like, how am I going to continue without just doing solo episodes all the time? And like, not everybody wants to listen to the solo episodes, but those of you that do, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here, because I even hate listening to solo episodes. Listening to myself talk and trying to edit just myself and my own thoughts and make them make sense. Whew. As you guys know, I believe that words are really powerful. And I was just saying, like, you know, I kind of wish that I could like just have the budget to fly to Los Angeles just to do some podcasts, because I know some people over there would do them with me. And I haven't gotten to talk to some of those people in a little while and have like good, genuine, deep, like heart to heart conversations with them. I think that going to California was like the change of environment that I needed, because I was suddenly inspired like all over again. I was like, holy shit, I'm almost filmed all the way through Thanksgiving, you know? And I'll tell you guys the reason that I film as far ahead as I do is like, as I said, I like to produce a well put together product that's going to be entertaining and not waste anybody's time. But in addition to that, I just think that sometimes life gets really overwhelming. So with the podcast, I try to always make sure that I'm in a really good headspace in order to be able to record the podcast. And when I was in Los Angeles, I was in a great headspace. I was so inspired by so many of the conversations that I had there and just so happy. And I think that it was a really nice like change of perspective for once, because the people in Los Angeles, if you guys didn't notice, the people in Los Angeles had so much of a different point of view with the internet and their relationship with the internet than a lot of the people that I've spoken to on the East Coast. I'm not saying that this is like an East Coast versus West Coast kind of mindset battle kind of thing going on by any means, no. But I do think that me as a person, I always related to the people on the East Coast so much more than the people on the West Coast. But anyways, I was so inspired by the conversations that I had in California that I was super excited to come home. Have you guys ever heard that story where it's like this guy gifted his daughter this 1990s car as her first car, and she was trying to sell it, and she took it like to, I think, a used car dealership, and they offered her like $3,000 for the car. And then he told her to hold on to the car and to take it to like a pawn shop or something. And then she went to the pawn shop and they offered her $1,000 for the car. And then he told her, okay, now take the car to this place, which was like a car club. And then they were like, oh my God, this car is worth like $130,000 and blah, 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 blah. And I think that the lesson that I got from that was kind of like, your location should not define your destination, you know? Like, your value may be determined as one thing in one area of life, but like in another area of life, you could be the most valuable thing on the planet. You know what I mean? It really just, it reminded me that sometimes it's okay to shift or to have to move a little bit or like pivot, you know? And I'm not saying that by saying that, like, I'm any less valuable on the East Coast than I am on the West Coast. I just think that, like, you know, I had a different pool of people that I was able to talk to. And, like, it doesn't mean that my podcast or what I'm doing is any less valuable. It's just that, like, for a moment in time, it was hard for me to navigate over here on the East Coast. And I'm not saying that I'm not going to run into that problem again, because I might next week. Who fucking knows? But I think that this is just me trying to tell you guys to try something new, and that it's okay to have to pivot sometimes. And that doesn't mean that you should give up on your dream or give up on whatever it is just because you have to pivot. Like, sometimes that pivot is just to teach you something else, and you never know what could be around the corner. So keep your eyes open and keep your mind open. speaking of keeping your eyes open and your mind open, I'm going to tell you what. I think that, God, it is a hard time in the world right now. I'm not a political person by any means. Don't feel like I'm about to jump into politics because I'm absolutely not. But I do want to talk about this a little bit because it has been an extremely, extremely rough week in the world, period. I got really emotional last night when I even thought about re-recording this episode because I was like, how am I supposed to be authentic when I feel like I'm doomed? You know, like I was like, how am I supposed to be authentic and talk about this fucking book that I want to talk about that I haven't even mentioned to you guys yet? When I just feel like we're fucked. Like I just feel like everything is fucked. And I'm not saying that because Donald Trump is now in office. Like that's not where I'm going with this. I feel like we're doomed because there's such a divide and so much hate going on right now and so much misinformation being spread that I don't know what we're going to do, you guys. I am so sad. I literally broke down in tears yesterday and I'm scared. I'm really, really scared. And let me tell you how I'm not going into politics with this, okay? Obviously, all of us just witnessed what the fuck just happened on Tuesday. First of all, let me talk about this really quick. The couple of podcasts that I have coming up and that have been put out recently were filmed weeks ago. Like, none of this was going on back then. Even the Thanksgiving episode that's about to come up, that one was also recorded weeks ago. I'm going to be totally transparent about that. Like I said, I like to be in the right headspace when I do things, and I like to be prepared. I don't like to do things last minute. And I feel like you can't rush art, and I feel like everything that I'm putting out, I'm trying to treat all of it as art, you know? So, all of this was recorded, like, ahead of time, except for this episode. And I didn't record this episode today because I felt the need to address what just happened to the world, or to the United States, I guess. But I did record this today because I wanted to put out better art, that's all. But with everything that just happened on Tuesday with Donald Trump winning, I just felt like this huge fucking divide, you guys. Oh my God, I got so emotional yesterday, and I'm going to try my best not to get emotional right now. For a second, I was feeling like it was a really good time to be a woman. I felt like we saw a lot of girls on top, a lot of women on top, a lot of women really running this shit in whatever industry they're in. And I just felt like, I don't know, like two very simplistic examples that I can give are like Anna Kendrick just came out with this movie. She made her directing debut and it was fucking phenomenal. And she acted in it as well, which is something that a lot of directors can't do. They can't direct and act at the same time. And then like Billie Eilish is on the fucking top of the charts right now. Like I like simplistically, I felt like women were doing really good and it felt like a really good time to be a woman. And like, I just felt like there was a lot of like femininity going around and like, you know, just a lot of power. And like, we were really standing together. And like, after Donald Trump got in office, I felt like we have not been this publicly in danger and attacked since I have been alive in 1996, or at least not that I can remember. And I'm not saying that because of Donald Trump. Not saying that because of Donald Trump, okay? I could, but I'm not gonna. I'm saying that about some of the people that have come out saying absolutely vulgar and ridiculous, crazy shit since he won. You know? Like, some of the tweets and shit that I've been seeing, like, I just want a president that's gonna respect my rights and, like, request deny. Like, I can't fucking believe it. Like, some of these people were hiding for so long. God, you know? And, like, hearing some people's opinions and, like, just clearly not giving a fuck about us is so scary. And I promise I'm going to move on from this in a second, but I will say that, like, being a black woman is one of the most vulnerable positions that you can be in. Being a woman of color is one of the most vulnerable positions that you can be in this life. And I'm just so fucking scared. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what some of these, like, crazy people are thinking, and it just makes me, like, want to curl up into a ball and hide because of the way that some of these people are coming across and the way that some of these people are speaking on the internet. It's so fucking scary for me right now. Like, I think that generally speaking, a lot of people, when you think of like MAGA or MAGA, whatever the fuck, however the fuck you pronounce it, they just think of like camouflage and guns and, that kind of thing. And like, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes when I'm driving on the road and I see somebody with one of those stickers on their car, like, it makes me want to hide beneath my steering wheel. Because we've all heard the horror stories on the news and, everything like that. And like, I'm not saying that it's right for me to be prejudiced, but like, it's just so hard when the news makes everything what it is. And, the internet is even fucking worse than the news too. And I'm not trying to be prejudiced, but like, I will say that it's okay for me to have a gut reaction when it comes to my safety. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. And that's just how I've always felt about it. And it's terrifying and it's so scary. What I really want to say about all of this is just that, like, I'm just seeing some off the wall shit. Like, people are really not afraid, and people have come out of the woodworks and come out of hiding, and like, that's what's the most scary about all of this right now. I'm talking strictly from a humanity level and nothing else. I'm not even really like talking about like what Donald Trump is going to do or this or that or whatever. Like, I try my best to ignore politics as much as I can, aside from like the basic information, because it stresses me out. I'm a really sensitive person. I'll cry easily. And I don't like when things aren't fair. I don't like when people aren't being treated fairly. I don't like when people are being like excluded or, I guess like I don't like hate. I don't like hate, and there's so much fucking hate that's going on in the world because of this shit right now. And I'm just so overwhelmed. Like, I think even living in my household and, hearing some of the things that some of our friends have had to say that have come in and out, and like, hearing our friends on the internet and hearing everyone on the internet talking about like fucking blocking people and dropping people and dissing them and like not giving a fuck anymore because they don't support us or they don't support this or I don't support them, they don't support me or whatever it is. Like, it just makes me so fucking sad. There's so much hate going on right now in this world, and like, it makes me want to throw up, quite frankly. It makes me want to throw up. Like, even thinking about it makes me want to throw up. And it's so hard too, because like, I'm so worried that now that this man is in office, that some of the people that I know and love that I didn't realize would agree with the way that he thinks about people of color or immigrants or, women or whatever the fuck it is. I just don't want to hear any unhinged shit from anybody that I love. I'm so scared of what that's going to do to some relationships, because I do have a sharp tongue and I'm not going to be able to argue with someone if someone does say something out of pocket. And I'm not going to argue with anybody. I can't politically argue with anyone. I follow the basics. I know what I need to know, but I don't do a ton of time researching on the internet and watching videos and this and that, because it will consume me and I will just feel like eternally existential and depressed. And that's all. I'm not a person that can like sit down and watch the news, but when it comes to like respect for human beings and like basic rights and all that kind of thing, that's where I have a problem. Those are the conversations that I'm worried about that are about to come up, or like the humanitarian conversations or lack thereof, I guess I should say. And how people treat people and what level women are on in, comparison to men. Like, I just, oh God, I'm hoping that nobody says any dumb shit in my presence, because it's not going to be pretty. That's what I'm most worried about, is like the conversation of like politics and basic human rights getting intertwined and me being anywhere near those conversations or being a part of those conversations or feeling the need to stick up and say something because I will, because that's just the kind of person that I am. I have to say something. I can't like just sit by and let things happen, which would make you think that I'm a political person, but I'm not. I will stand up for people, and like I just think that I've been in an underdog position my whole life, and like I don't let people step on me. I don't like to let people step on me. It's disgusting. And unfortunately, not everybody is comfortable with using their voice that they were given. And some people are a little scared or a little more shy. And even if I'm shaking in my fucking boots when I decide to open my mouth, I will not keep my mouth shut, And unfortunately, if I do end up in a conversation like that, like I'm going to seem uneducated because they're going to try to bring up politics, and that's not what I'm here to talk about. That's not what I'm even fucking saying. And it's not what you should be saying either. Like, we're talking about human fucking beings here. We're all human. We're all human beings. And like, oh God, that's all. Speaking of human beings, this is something that I brought up in the episode before I had to re-record this. We're all human beings living on the same planet at the same time, And I believe that we all have something to learn from each other. And I think that that's something that I do love so much about all of these episodes that I do get to do, is that we get to learn something different from each person, Like, it doesn't matter what they do for a living or who they are. Like, we all get to learn something different from them and get to, like, listen to them speak and hopefully get, like, a different point of view on something or get a different, like, way of looking at something in life because of these people that are so gracious to come on the podcast and talk to me. And I want you guys to remember that for, like, the upcoming episodes. All of us should be here with each other's best interests at heart. And I think that all of us should also be here and be willing to be open-minded and try our best to learn from each other. I try my best to absorb all the information that I get and hang on to people's every last word because I like to think of myself as like a little sponge, and I'm just like obsessed with learning and like learning new things. And so I think that's why I love talking to as many different people as I can personally. Now, one of the conversations that I had in California was actually really similar to the one that I'm sitting down having right now. And I'm not saying like actually, like it wasn't like a politically charged conversation or like a fucking basic human rights kind of conversation or a conversation about women or anything of the sort. By similar to the setting, I mean where I'm currently at. I'm currently sitting in the trunk of my Jeep Wrangler at a lake. And if you guys actually have been keeping up with the episodes, you may have seen that I did an episode with my friend named Carter. She's a professional model, and we sat in the trunk of her Bronco and did a episode very similar to this, but we were at Griffith Park, and then her car decided to cut off on us, and we had to move to her apartment after that to finish the podcast. So I have learned that there is a fuse, actually, that you can disconnect in your car to have constant power to your back cigarette outlet, which is exactly how I'm powering my cameras right now currently. But my conversation with Carter was lovely. And I feel like if you didn't get a chance to listen to that episode, it's called Model Off Duty. She is just such an intelligent and bright intellectual human being. And I just feel like she has so much to offer to the world. And I wish that she would use her voice more often than she gets a chance to currently. So I was really glad to be able to give her that time and space and really get to absorb her as a human being and, hear what she thinks and how she views the world and, the internet and all that kind of thing. I was really grateful to be able to like just absorb Carter's energy and just sit there with her and spend that time with her. And I was so glad that she was willing to come on the podcast, especially when she doesn't do a lot of speaking in the world that she's in, is I guess what I'll call it, or like in her line of work. But she recommended a really good book to you guys. It's called The Body Keeps Score. I have not gotten the chance to read it. I will be moving on to that book next after I finish the one that I'm currently on. And I also recommended a book to you guys called The Creative Act. Now, I could read you guys the entire list of books that I have in my iBooks library and like all the books that I have on my bookshelf at home to tell you guys what kind of books I'm into, but I'm actually going to save that for a different episode that I'm going to do with a couple of friends. I just talked to them about it a few days ago, and everybody's willing to do it, so I'm really excited for that. It's not actually a book conversation, it's a conversation about success. But a lot of the books that I read are books that are like self-help and, success-driven books. And I feel like The Creative Act is a great one. I've listened to it a couple times. I think that the beginning is a rough start, but I do think that it's worth a read. And I actually read a book recently, cover to cover, through and through. I listened to it twice, believe it or not. I did read it all the way through one time while I was listening to it, and then the second time I just listened to it because it was that inspiring. And since this episode is supposed to be about like inspiration and change and all that kind of thing, I think that I want to talk to you guys about this book today. It's called The Third Door, and it's by Alex Banayan. I believe I'm pronouncing his last name right. I don't really know. And the reason that I wanted to bring this book up is because this kind of has to do with two of the podcasts that I did in California. Number one, I kind of found this book because of Sonia. I don't know if you guys remember Sonia. Sonia was on the episode that I called Defying the Game. Sonia and I are a great pair together. I actually miss her a lot. I should text her after this. We're a great pair. We constantly are like recommending things to each other back and forth. That girl has literally like changed so many little parts of my life already, and we haven't even been friends for that long of a time. Super grateful for her and her friendship. But she had recommended this podcast to me when the two of us had sat down for lunch before we did our podcast episode together. And it's called the Colin and Samir Show. Colin and Shamir. Shamir. Anyways, that's the name of the podcast. And she recommended one to me that they did where they interviewed the head of Instagram. Like, I don't think it's the founder, but like the guy that basically like runs Instagram and like approves everything and disapproves certain things and whatever. And like he's the reason that Instagram is the way that it is and why things happen the way that they do on the platform, right? Listen to that one. It was pretty good. And then I saw another podcast that they did with somebody prior to interviewing the head of Instagram. And it was called How This College Dropout Caught the Attention of Millionaires. Talk about a fucking title. Oh my God. They interviewed Alex Banayan in this podcast, and I was hooked. I was like, I have to buy this book. I really want to get the physical copy of it because it was that fucking good. But I bought it on iBooks same day, downloaded the PDF version of it as well so that I could read and listen at the same time. You guys don't understand how hard it is for me to get through books. God damn, it is hard to keep my attention for that long of a period of time. But this book, I read cover to cover in a day and a half. And I was physically reading it also. Like, I got through this book so fucking fast, you guys. I cannot even explain it. But anyways, I listened to this book cover to cover and read it all the way through in a day and a half. Like, it was the only thing I could consume. Oh my God, I was so into this book. And then I listened to it a second time after that. It's so good. And basically, this book it's called The Third Door by Alex Banayan. And basically, this kid like dropped out of college, Alex, and he was, I guess, like always looking for a book that talked about like all these different successful people and like what their mindset was like before they became successful and how they became successful because of their mindset and the way that they would act and the way that they would get themselves in certain positions. And like, I'm not going to spoil the whole thing, but I will tell you guys the premise of the book is quite literally that there's always another way in. He looks at life like a nightclub, right? Like anything that he wants to do is like a nightclub. There's the first door where the line is wrapped around the building and everybody's just waiting to get their IDs checked so that they can finally get into the club, and they're hoping that they're going to be able to get in by the time they get to the front door, right? Then there's the second door where all the celebrities go in and the VIP and blah, blah, blah. And there's the red rope and you have to get your name checked off of a guest list in order to go in. And then there's a third door. And the third door is where you have to run into the back of the alley and knock on the door 100 times and say a secret password. And then finally they maybe will let you in. And he basically says that every single person that he talked to had that mentality. Like there has to be another way. Basically, like it doesn't have to be the mainstream mainline way of doing things. There has to be another way. And they will do whatever it is that they have to do to find the other way in and to find the way to get where they need to get or get done what they need to get done to make it fucking happen. And it was just so inspiring, you guys. I really hope that you take a chance on the book, and if you do, please direct message me. Let's talk. I would love to talk about it. I'll quite frankly probably listen to it a third time. But yeah, you guys, it's just such a good book. What a good one. What a good one. Man, you guys, I feel like, is that it for this episode? Holy shit. I didn't think that this episode was going to be that long. I felt like this was going to be a shorter one because, you know, the solo episodes, I try to keep them short because it seems like they're received a little bit better that way. But I just had to get it out today, I guess. And if you're still listening, I really appreciate you for being here. I think that the little ramble and the little rant that I was going on earlier, where I was just saying that I have always done my best to be authentic, it kind of circles back to this, right? I really wanted to talk to you guys in this podcast about the episodes that I did in California, welcome you back to New Jersey, kind of resettle, inspire you guys to visit a place that's inspiring to you or to get a change of environment. You don't have to fly all the way the fuck to Los Angeles to get a change of environment. I think that I just wanted to be able to inspire you guys to like try something new, and like, you know, sometimes trying something new is the thing that'll force you to look up every now and then, because if you don't look up, you're not going to know where you're going. You know what I mean? I know I also mentioned that I love analogies and that I was probably going to throw a million of them into this podcast. Somehow I got myself to stop. I don't know what that was, but I do have another one for you. I think another thing that I wanted to mention that I actually didn't mention is a phrase that my dad has said to me and my brother my entire life, and that is that you have to use your brakes in order to go faster. And I could dive deep into the best way to approach, you know, a turn on a motocross track when you're on a dirt bike, you know what I mean? And like explain to you guys why he was telling us that you have to use your brakes in order to go faster. But like, you have to use your brakes in order to go faster. And there's really no way that I can like explain this without comparing it to like cars or motorcycles. So I'm going to try my best to explain this the best that I can. I don't know. I mean, if you're watching a race, right, whether it's a car, motorcycle, whatever, most of the time, unless you're watching drag racing, it's not a straight line, right? Like there's turns and there's twists and there's this and there's that and there's, you know, elevation changes and blah, blah, blah that these vehicles have to go through. And what my dad always meant was you have to use your brakes in order to go faster, was because you have to slow down before the turn in order to fly through the turn as fast as you possibly can. Because if you're going wide open throttle into a turn, you're going to crash. Like, you can't go as fast turning as you can going straight, right? So when you're coming up to the turn, you have to slow down at some point in order to get through that turn and then keep moving, right? And not crash. And I think that for me, this is an analogy that I also used in life. Like sometimes you have to slow down in order to continue, which is where like the term you have to use your brakes in order to go faster comes in. Like sometimes you just have to slow down in order to continue. I guess that applies to like so many different things in life. That could apply to like sometimes you have to slow down so that you don't get burnt out and you don't give up, or like sometimes you have to like slow down and really evaluate so you can like figure out exactly where it is that you want to go, or you know, sometimes you have to like slow down and smell the roses to know what else you want in your garden. Like you have to slow down and absorb the big picture sometimes, you know, in order to keep moving. Like you can't just focus on like every single little detail and never look up every now and then, because you're not going to know what the fuck you're painting. You know what I'm saying? Like this is what I'm talking about with the fucking analogies, you guys. I really need to shut up and let you go. But anyways, going back to the authenticity, that's the kind of stuff that I wanted to talk to you guys about today. And then I got into a whole thing about what the fuck just happened on Tuesday. And I feel like with how heavily this has affected my emotions, just with watching all of these human beings interact with each other after all of this happened, I couldn't really ignore it. I think that just seeing the amount of hate that is circulating on the internet right now and seeing how many people are cutting people off and girls are breaking up with their boyfriends and like all this other kind of stuff, like I'm just like, it's been weighing on me so heavily. Quite frankly, I have therapy at 1:15. I have to check what time it is. It's 12:30. I have a little bit of time, but yeah, I think that, you know, with how much it's like affecting me, I couldn't just put a mask on and get through this shit today. And this is also why I said, like, I really have to be in the right headspace to create you know? And I'm not saying that, like, I'm a person that waits and waits and waits to create. Like, I don't do that. But, like, when I have something that's on my mind, I make sure to do it as soon as it's on my mind. And, God damn it, the fucking sun keeps moving. The sun keeps moving, and it's driving me insane. These leaves are literally attacking me, and there's nothing I can do about it. The Mother Nature is like, wrap it the fuck up, bitch. Like, get through it. Anyways, you guys, I love you so much. I love you so much, no matter who you are. I really hope that you know that. I hope you know that you have someone that loves you, and I am really looking forward to next week's episode, and I really hope that you guys tune into that. I don't know if you're going to be spending the holiday with your family or with your friend's family or some friends or alone. Whoever you are spending the holiday with, even if it's just by yourself with your pets, that episode is going to be for you. I listened to it yesterday, and it was perfection. Literally perfection. I'm so excited to release that one, so I really hope you guys enjoy it and you guys love it. I really hope that with this episode today that I didn't leave anybody feeling uncomfortable. If I did, I apologize. Like I said, I'm not gonna make myself uncomfortable for somebody else's comfort, and my goal was not to make anybody uncomfortable. I just, again, going back to the authenticity, I'm not gonna put a mask on and ignore the way that I'm feeling for, you know, the sake of content. Like, I can't, you guys. I'm just always gonna be who I am and be real and be honest, and that's kind of it, you know, and I think you should do the same. So, thank you guys so much for listening. Whether you're new here or you've been here for a while, I really appreciate you for coming back and listening to the podcast or listening to me all the way through. I am always genuinely shocked when I have more listeners than me and the person that was on the podcast. So, it honestly leaves me speechless, and I appreciate you guys more than you know. You're keeping me running, really. So, with all that being all that, I think I crushed this episode in comparison to the last one. I hope you guys thought so too. Reach out to me. Let me know what you thought. I would love to hear from you guys. And if you are feeling the way that I am feeling, just know that you're not alone. Okay? So, I love you guys, and I will see you next Tuesday. Bye. Are you fucking kidding me? No way. Alright, talk to you soon on the next URL versus